everybody, Liz from Augusta here, and before we start our interview today, I had to preface it with a little something for you to know before we do start. When I interview franchisees, I always send them the information beforehand with their questions, what we're going to talk about, and then we loosely follow that throughout the interview. The one coming up here, our gentleman did not read all the notes and the instructions, and the funny thing is he had no idea what he was being interviewed for. So when we start the interview, he stops me and he says, can I ask a question? And my question is, what is this for? And he told me later on that he thought the interview that I was setting up with him was like an interview to see if he was ready or if he could or if he was vetted enough to start his second location. He had been wanting to start his second location and he thought that's what this was. So it's kind of funny to listen to the whole interview knowing now what he thought he was having an interview about. And so what we'll do is when he starts the second location, he said, if I had known we were recording, I would have gotten more into depth, and it's important to read instructions, people. So enjoy. Hope you enjoy the show today. Love you all. Good morning, everybody. This is Liz from Augusta, and we are checking in today to see how everybody is and to tell you about somebody else from Augusta Nation and hear their story. And I'm going to let him introduce himself, who he is, and where he's from.
I'm Jason. Hey, I have a question real quick. Is this for like a recording of, maybe I'm not aware of what this is for.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So this is for those who might be interested in owning a franchise, don't know anything about it. It's also for the members of Augusta Nation so that they can listen and learn about each other, because most of them never even meet each other. Even if they don't come to Summit, they never meet each other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you probably haven't heard any before, but we've done a whole bunch and you might love to listen to them and hear about some of the others.
Okay. Yeah. My name is Jason. I'm from Spokane Valley. And I started with Augusta 2 years ago. It's my second year. Yeah, it's been great. It's been quite the journey. I think last year had some sharp learning curves. This year, things have kind of sorted themselves out. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to hearing some of that a little further down. But can you first tell us how you heard about Augusta?
So I actually had a friend who started up with Grounds Guys. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of when I learned that you could enter this business through a franchise. And so I just started doing some research. So I actually found them online and kind of went with them based on a couple of reasons. One, the proximity to Spokane Valley. You know, you guys are located in Bellingham, Washington, which is super close to me. So I knew that would make things a bit easier. And then the other major reason at the time was the fact that you guys don't work on a sliding scale in terms of how we pay our franchise, how we pay you.
The monthly rate, you mean?
The monthly rate, yeah. Yeah. So a lot of other companies will work on a sliding scale, meaning like, up to a certain revenue, you pay a certain percent. Once you pass that revenue, then your percentage obviously goes up, which basically ultimately in time you'll meet a dead spot, right? Where it doesn't make any sense to grow any further.
Yeah.
You're paying out more money. So there's always that kind of a sliding scale. There's a point where you reach where you're like, well, I might as well just sit here because anything beyond this, I'm just basically doing it for the franchise and not myself.
100%.
That was like the major reason. And then honestly, like later on, I learned like everything that he was doing in terms of all the back end stuff, like his apps. Now we have Copilot coming out. Before that was Zuper, all the systems and things like that. But I was mainly drawn due to the financial aspect of it.
And did you listen to his content for quite a while, or was it just a short time?
Nope. I found out who he was. I kind of listened to a few things, and I worked on it since. But I've always been kind of an all or nothing. Just like if it feels right, okay, let's try it. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Lose out on some money or fail.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's always a way out too. Yeah. It's like a 10-year commitment. What you said a little bit earlier was exactly the reason why we didn't want to own a franchise. we wanted to be a franchisor and create systems for people, but it was the whole tradition is that you would have that sliding scale, and we didn't want to do that because at a certain point the franchisee doesn't even need the franchisor anymore. They've got their systems down and they're doing great, and if they're making $50 million, there's no way they want to share such a huge percent of that. So the nice thing is even after you've made your $50 million, you're still only paying $1,200 a month.
Right.
Yeah. So what was the final thing that caused you to commit?
Honestly, it was my position in life at the time. I just needed something different.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to kind of get out of the industry that I was in. I've been in the food and beverage industry for 23 years of my life.
Wow.
Living in ski towns. Ski towns are a very transient place. So I was just looking for a change in my life. I mean, that was the defining factor, was I just wanted to do something different. And this is what it was. And
how have you found that transition to go from food and beverage to owning your own business and running the whole thing?
Yeah. Like I said, I was, I still am, but spur of the moment. Kind of when I get something in my head, I just go for it and see how it works out. And so at the time, I needed a change in my life, and this was the change that I settled on.
That's awesome. So how has it been for you so far? Some of the highs and the lows. We're not looking for perfection. We actually want to encourage other people by the lows too of your story.
Yeah. So last year, just being new to being a business owner, not super new to the industry. I have done it in the past. I actually had my own business mowing lawns when I was 12. My sister used to drive me around in her Toyota Tercel in the back of it. But I would say some of the lows were just a lot of my lows came. It wasn't the business aspect of it. A lot of my lows came from personally, growing, getting away from who I was to what I am now. With the decision of, moving home and starting a business, and kind of like, I kind of in shorter terms tell people that I just needed to grow up.
Yeah.
I've been in Peter Pan land for, 25 years of my life. And so a lot of my growing pains came from personal. But in terms of the business, just learning to manage my time was a big struggle. And the first year, last year, just overworked myself. Just kind of assume that, the harder I work, the more I'm going to produce and the faster I'm going to grow, which, to an extent that's true, but there also is just a breaking point with anyone. I don't care who you are. There's going to be a breaking point. And so my time management, just learning the industry. I think I had a lot of the skills, like in terms of people, personal relations, just from working in restaurants and just the industries that I've worked in throughout my life. So that came pretty naturally. And then the highs would be like the coming into this year, just kind of knowing what I know from last year and being able to implement certain things that I look back on and I knew that I made mistakes on, and just kind of seeing the results of that. The results of, really diving into the efficiencies and the systems that Mike Andes has developed and put in place. I think the first year it's pretty easy for people to get away from those because once again, you kind of just go back to just work harder, work more, longer. It'll all sort itself out. And in actuality, like if you and I think it's inevitable for any first year person to kind of get that mentality and go that direction. But as long as you can sort it out and kind of get away from that and, go to the systems and kind of really dive into the things that have been developed around Augusta, it pays dividends. You have more time in your life. You're a lot, you have a lot less stress on your plate. And things just become a little bit easier and more manageable. And then, obviously the business side of it comes along with it, like the money, and the clientele and things like that. So, as far as highs, to recap, like highs have just been to see the progression this year, and see how much easier it is. Maybe not as that it gets easier, but it's more manageable, and it all makes more sense, and it just allows you to grow more. And then the lows would be just growth in both aspects, personal and business. But I think that
so you were really attracted by the systems in the beginning, and this is a question a lot of people would have. They want to have systems in their life. They're attracted to it, but once they get in it, do you feel like or at the beginning, like you're just pushing up against all these rules and it's too much?
Yeah, a lot of it doesn't make sense at first. You kind of feel like I don't know, I guess maybe I felt like I wasn't in total control of certain things.
Yeah.
Or just certain things you want to do your way,
Right.
which to a degree is okay. But then there's certain things, it's just like, if you just let it be, it's going to sort itself out a lot quicker and easier.
Yeah. And also you're at the beginning of Augusta. We've only been doing this 4 years. So we're still learning and growing and developing our systems. And so that's part of the thing. When you join with us, you've really are on the bandwagon to help us get better. And so your contributions to that in all the frustrating times of relationships and everything with our command center, who's ever helping you, have you found that we've gotten a little bit better and then we work together better as time goes on?
Yeah, definitely. I think that was a lot of frustration in the beginning for me. I just didn't, there was just a lot going on. And when you're getting, like, there was a few things that I was like, well, why? It seems redundant. Like, okay, I'm getting, this person's calling in. I have command center that's taking all these notes, and then they're contacting me. It's like, it seems like a pretty easy fix if command center just fixes it.
Just deal with it.
Just deal with it.
Yeah.
Right? If somebody wants to switch to biweekly, don't text me and ask me. Just do it. Or, maybe that's a bad example, but just anything along that lines.
No, that's a perfect example, because the feedback that we got from you and that we get from the franchisees is how we immediately changed that system. And it's so much better now.
Yeah. So I think that was a little bit frustrating at first. And then, I know that I was kind of a sour. I've definitely looked back on last year and was like, oh man, I could have probably said things a little bit differently, and then maybe with a little bit of different tone in my voice. But, this year's different. So I'm happy for that.
Yeah. Is there a way to communicate with command center all during the day other than you having to do phone calls, just for those listening?
Yeah. Connect team. So at any time, say you're in the fields, I use it regularly. If you're in the field and you're like, oh man, I forgot to send this out to a client, or at any time you can get on Connect Team, and there's a couple different links or a couple different avenues. So you have people you can just talk to about anything, and then there's there's a payroll chat. There's what other one? Payroll, P4P, and then just your normal chat. But yeah, you can get on there and you can just ask them to perform a task, and I wouldn't say that I've ever waited more than maybe an hour to get a response and have the tasks done. So if you're just out in the field and you're grinding away and you forgot to call a client and tell them something, you can literally text in and be like, hey, can you call this client and let them know X, Y, and Z, and it'll be done.
So when you started, did you have any customers at all, or you were just starting completely from scratch?
Zero.
Wow. And
we have
spring seasons, right?
Pardon me?
You've had 2 spring seasons?
2 spring rushes, yep.
Yeah. And so now, do you have employees? How many trucks do you have?
We have 4 trucks. I have a little backup, I call it the estimator car, but if I don't have to use it, I don't. But typically, we have 4 trucks full-time with 4 employees full-time. We service somewhere around 150 clients a year or a week.
That is awesome. And so what kind of services do you offer?
We keep it really basic. So weekly reoccurring mowing. I have a fertilizing program. And then we do bed maintenance, weekly or biweekly bed maintenance. And we do spring and fall cleanups and bush trimmings. And then as far as softscaping, other projects, we'll do sod and bed work is really kind of our bread and butters.
Sweet. Are you ever attracted by bigger jobs and want to do bigger landscaping jobs, or are you good doing this?
I'm not, and there's a few reasons for that. I think that just the investment that goes into it, what's the words? Yeah, I'm not, just because I want to keep it simple. I want to be able to pull a guy off the street and be able to have him performing and working for budgeted hours within a couple days.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And your other guys, they're good to train. Are they all like on single trucks alone, or?
So we run single man crews, one guy per truck. And yeah, they're all great. This year's been super awesome. Actually, I have a couple guys out right now. They're having babies, kids having kids, which is pretty amazing. They're all pretty tough. But besides that, yeah, I haven't had any no-shows, no call, like sick times or anything like that. They usually 10 minutes early every day come in. I have to like physically be, like if I need to come in, like we have team meetings, but like if I need to like come in and chat with someone, I have to like make sure I get there really early, because I never know if they're going to be there at 7 a.m. because typically they're gone by 7 a.m.
Sweet. This
is all because of P for P. 100%.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, how do they feel about that?
Oh, I mean, it speaks for itself. Like I think last month, everyone averaged over $25 an hour.
And you can't do that at any other landscaping company because there's just a cap at how much they can pay.
Yep. And they realize that all they got to do, is just get through their route, do a good job, and they're done for the day, and they're gonna make 20, whatever, 24 to 26 bucks an hour is what they kind of average, which is like working a 40-hour week, but they work like during the hot months here. They average 30-hour weeks, and they're making as much as they would if they were working, 5 or 6 or 5 to 10 hours of overtime.
Are you kind of in a growth mode where you're pushing really hard, or are you just trying to sustain where you are for now?
Growth. So we want to do, but kind of both. So like the last month, I kind of decided after last summer that like the month of August is kind of just like a kind of, I wouldn't say kickback, but kind of like slow down for us and just let guys just kind of mow and basically kind of give them a break and set them up for the fall. Because spring and fall are obviously our 2 really busy seasons. But as far as us as a company, I would next year possibly add another truck, but I wouldn't do anything different. I think where we're at is really comfortable. It's comfortable for me. It's comfortable for the crew. Everyone's making decent money. That's basically putting us in like the $500,000 to $600,000 range.
Okay.
And then the goal for me is to get that set and then just start another location.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next. Like, what's your goal to actually get to? And I'm there. And then would you actually take somebody from in your group now, you think? Do you have somebody that you got your eye on for a GM to go start it? Or would you go start the other one and let them run that mostly with you overseeing?
I would take, I thought about this. I would prefer to have somebody oversee this location. And the reason is because this location is set, and the person that I would bring up within the company already knows all the routes. They've probably mowed most of, 90% of the yards. They've dealt with the clients, and they kind of just know how our systems work for this location. And so I think it'd be a lot less stressful and just a lot easier to put somebody in place here. And then I would go start another location. And that's the plan for next year. So I've already purchased our South Hill location. Or in the process, I guess, waiting on an invoice. But I think it's like our best case scenario. It literally will butt up to this location, and I'll own from, just a 10-mile swath of territory from the Idaho border to the Colfax-Pullman Highway, and then south of the freeway, which nobody knows what that is, but I'm just throwing that out there. So basically, and we'll utilize our current location, shop, parking spaces at a storage unit. We have just acquired 2 more parking spaces. So we basically have like a 150 by 150 plot of dirt. And then we have, a 20 by 30 storage unit. And for the first, for at least the first 2 trucks, So 100 hour, 70 budgeted hours worth of reoccurring work in the new location. We can work out of this shop, utilize all the tools, mowers, and also utilize the guys. So in that spring, I'll just hire a bunch of people. We'll be able to work out of that one location so that at any time I can be like, okay, well, you're going to be on the South Hill today. You're going to be in the Valley. This is what we're doing. And so I don't have to juggle balance between two locations in terms of employees. So I think a huge gain on our part for our situation.
And would you share the same space and everybody would still meet at that same spot in the morning?
Until it didn't make sense. Yep.
Yeah.
So until we grew to a point where I think the biggest thing is just having guys set. So once I get to the point of being able to fill a couple trucks for one, and then two, just kind of learning who the new people are, where they thrive, because I like to put people where they are good, right? Not everyone's good at mowing. Not everyone likes to be in a truck by themselves every day, but then that same person could love being out, digging in the dirt and doing project work.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, once you get all that settled, then and when it made sense, and when we're kind of butting heads there, like not enough space is when I would venture out, go find an office or a storage unit in that territory. And
that's smart.
But at that point, it would be easier just to spread everything apart because there's already guys that are in place there and guys that are in place here. So that's the plan. That's my plan.
So when you think of wanting to get your second location and you look at the map of Washington State and you have yours, is it a circle?
Yeah, 5 mile radius circle.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then the second one, how do you decide what you want? Is there any space in between, or do they kind of overlap into the other circle?
They slightly overlap.
Nice. And so the thought process behind that, if you're a franchisee, if somebody is a franchisee, do you feel a little pressure that if you're going to want a franchise space that's close to yours or butting up against yours, do you feel pressure that you have to do it soon because that particular state is getting full of franchisees and all those spots around you?
100%. That's why I made my decision this year. I thought about so I was considering just going into like a full growth mode for 1 year, or profit mode for 1 year, and just kind of saving some money and just really getting things set in place. But we recently I actually talked to this gentleman earlier in the year, a kid or a young man purchased basically the eastern side of me. So Post Falls.
Oh, okay.
And as soon as I found that, I was like, oh man, like what if? Like, so that one I wouldn't be upset or sad about that one just because there's a state line in between, and I really don't want to work in two different states.
Definitely.
But at the same time, it like kind of put a fire under my butt. I was like, well, my best case scenario is at South Hill. What if somebody comes in there and buys that? Then what do I do? Then things are going to get exponentially more challenging, I suppose.
Yeah, but you don't want to go way out and skip somebody else's territory and then start another one of your own.
Well, yeah, and the way this one works out too is nobody can be in my zone. Like they're just butted up next to each other, and like there's no reason for anyone to be within my territory at all, because anything south is just farmland, and anything north of the freeway is downtown or just other neighborhoods that I wouldn't venture into. So I don't have any competition anymore for what I want to do here.
Yeah.
And I would say that there's probably somewhere around 150 to 200,000 people in my service areas alone.
That's awesome. So you sound like you don't have a high turnover at all. What do you think it is that keeps guys with you in particular? Like, what's your culture like?
We've had some turnover, but I usually just let those people weed themselves out. I think a lot of it is how you treat your employees. I think that you should always be striving to build your employees up in some way, shape, or form. Put them in positions where they're going to succeed. Listen. And for me, I'm older, and I've gone. I've been around. Like I've lived all over. I've traveled all over. I mean, this is the first time I've been home for over a year in like 21 years.
Wow.
So I've never been like, I've always just been on the go. And so most of my employees are younger. And so to be able to give them advice on things and kind of, I don't know, almost prepare them for some things in life really helps. And then obviously, I think the majority of it is the P4P. A lot of it is like, I mean, they obviously like to make money, and when they understand it and see how it works and they realize what they need to do to get it. I mean, so last year, P4P did not work for me whatsoever. Like at one point I was like, stop calculating it because it's just a waste of time. Like I'll make it up to these guys some other way. And that was a lot of that was just not having certain systems in place, not bidding yards correctly, just based on times. And, you know, I had a couple employees that I was just paying cash, basically, you know, a family member, and, you know, the normal things, I think pretty normal when you start out, just get people there, just get bodies, get people working, and you'll figure the rest out. But this year, that was one of my main goals, was to make P4P work. And it's always going to be a struggle, especially when you're starting up and don't really understand it that well. And then the spring rush doesn't help, because it doesn't matter how you bid a yard. You can't bid it for, you know, 8 inches of growth every year, because you'll never seal it. You'll never get the job.
Right.
Because you'd have to bid it for, you know, twice as much time. So just making guys realize that, yeah, you're still making really good money. It's not P4P money, but it's overtime money, right? Like you're still making the money. You just got to put a little more effort into it, and it's going to pay off in the slower growth months, where you're out there for literally 30 hours a week and you're making the same amount of money that you're making right now. And that was the most stressful and hardest part to like deal with in the spring this year. It was like keeping guys motivated, and just like, you know, it's kind of like you're dangling a carrot, but it's like at some point they get the carrot. And when they got the carrot, that's when everyone's eyes just went bing, and they were like, all right, this works, right? And coming into the fall, it's going to be the same situation, because here, you know, we have a lot of, you know, the type of grass we have is, you know, it thrives in cooler weather. So spring, fall, that's when your busiest growth seasons are. And so here, now they know what to expect. They know that in the next 6 weeks, there will be a point where they're not going to see the best P4P scores, and they're not going to see all the money coming from P4P, but they're going to see it coming from just still working in their hourly and their overtime. Yes. And at some point at the end of the year, what I'll do is I'll take and do an average, right? Like overtime hours and pay versus like their P4P, and just show that it still makes sense to do the P4P than it would be to do hourly. And then coming from an employer standpoint, the P4P is great because it's creating efficiencies. And I never use the word fast, right? Like when I talk to guys, like I never say the faster you are, the more P4P you're going to make. You always might say the more efficient you are. Right. But it's not about running through a yard, because I did have a guy who was like, oh man, I did this yard in, you know, this amount of time. And what I did was when I was weed eating, I was running. And I was like, whoa.
My word.
Okay, let's back up here. I was like, okay, that's great. Like, I love your enthusiasm, but 2 reasons we probably shouldn't do that. 1, it's probably not safe. And 2, it's not a good look if you're literally running through the yard with a weed eater trying to be as fast as you can. And I kind of explained it to him. He's like, oh yeah, you're probably right. But we're always trying to create efficiencies versus being fast. So it's the things you can, it's the not needed things you can cut out that ultimately make you faster.
For sure. So you have 4 guys, 4 trucks. So how do you split up your day? Are you working in the field or just doing estimates in the estimate car?
This year I was mostly doing estimates. Yeah, I wasn't in the field much. I've been in the field lately just because I have a couple guys out. But that was also one of my focuses, because I really did burn myself out last year. And so I wanted to start more focus on the business, working on the business than in the business type of thing. And it paid dividends. I mean, I was able to, and the biggest thing about that, it's like, at first I felt really lazy, and I was like, oh, you know, I should be out there and I should be putting in as much work as these guys so they could see that I'm a good person or a good business owner or hard worker or whatever. But I really quickly realized that that's all smoke and mirrors, because like where it really comes down to is customer service. Like you want to keep and retain customers, be on it. Like when they email you, email back,
Yes.
call back. Like if it makes more sense, call them, speak to them personally. Cause like I can't even count how many emails or texts that I've gotten from clients that just appreciate the communication. And especially this year, like giving praise to all my workers, which is such a good feeling when you get like a text or an email saying like, hey, you guys are crushing it this year. Like everything looks so good. We really appreciate you, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, the guys see it through tips and things like that. Clients coming out and feeding them, you know, have a couple that get fed lunch, you know.
That's
so
awesome.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So some people are pretty well contained and they don't need a lot of support from outside. But have you found any benefits of being in Augusta, being able to talk to other franchisees, being able to have the Mike Minutes or the Facebook group? Has any of that been a help to you?
Yeah, truth be told, a lot of times I don't have time to keep up with it. And I'm not a social media person.
Yeah.
I actively stay away from social media because I think a lot of it's toxic, and I would rather spend my time doing other things. But I am part of like a chat with a few other local Washington franchises.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I try to keep up on that. But for the most part, I will ask questions, but I'm also the type of person that I could ask that question and I'm still not going to take your advice until I either succeed or fail at it. And then I know for sure which I should take. So a lot of things I just kind of do the pros and cons in my own mind, and I just pick a decision and just go with it. But as far as like keeping up with what's going on, yeah, Mike Minutes, Roundtable, those are all really awesome avenues for us.
So long term, like if you're thinking 10 years, are you thinking that far out, or are you just working on the one to get to like say 500,000, then you start your next one, get that one to 500,000? What's your plan to end this thing or to expand?
Yeah, 10 years is way far away. I don't think that far ahead about anything. But I kind of try to keep a pretty small bubble. But yeah, so next year, maybe add another 30 budgeted hours to this location, sit on that, refine it, get as profitable as possible. And then obviously the main focus for next year is going to be starting the new location. And my immediate is just getting through this year, trying to figure out and talk with guys and see who's going to be the best fit for this location.
Yeah.
And then this winter will just be full of getting everything set up for next year with the new location, and then getting things solidified here so that I can be here minimally. I mean, I'll always look over everything, but.
Right. Yeah. So just to wrap up for today, first of all, I really appreciate your time. It's really helped a lot of people to see somebody else who's doing it right and has had a couple bumbles along the way. But it's not often that you have a platform to really just share a little bit. Do you have some advice you'd give to people, what you wouldn't do if you were doing it over again, or what you would do, and just to encourage them a little bit?
What's my biggest thing I would not do again? I think everything worked out the way it was supposed to. I didn't make any detrimental mistakes, which was great considering what was going on just in life in general for me. I mean, there's the first thing that comes to my mind actually is I wouldn't buy a 6.5 foot bed.
Okay.
Okay, that's a good one. Ramp racks are great. And then as far as I've spaced it. So you want a pro? What was the question? Sorry.
Yeah, to give some kind of encouragement or help to other people, things you did great, things you maybe failed at that you learned from.
Right. Okay. One mistake that I see a lot of, not a mistake, but like, I wouldn't focus on the micro, what's the best way to put it? All the little tiny little things. I see people like break things down to the point where you're like, wow, like to the penny. And it's like,
Yeah.
it can be stressful. It can be overwhelming. It takes a lot of your time. I would say just go for it. Don't make any detrimental decisions where like, it's either you got a 50-50 shot of like, bankrupting your business. But for the most part, just keep pushing forward and don't worry about the small things, especially the first year. Like, I don't know if this is a good thing to say, but last year I didn't even look at my QuickBooks until August. I just knew that it was getting taken care of as long as I had money in the bank account. I just pushed forward and just like push, get the clientele. As long as you're good with your clients and you're building the business and your finances are okay visually, you're gonna lose money. You're never gonna do things perfect the first time around. Second location, I know what not to spend money on. I know where to save money, but in your first, you're not going to, and just accept it because you're gonna make mistakes. As long as they're not detrimental, that's all that matters. And just keep pushing forward and just, let the past be the past and just learn from it.
That is awesome advice. I love it. I think that will help a lot of people just to chill out a little bit.
Chill out and just, worry about keeping the clients happy, getting work, keeping your guys happy. Like, things are going to break. Guys are going to break things. Things aren't going to go the way you want them to every single day. Just accept it. Wake up like every day is a new day and just move on and keep pushing.
That's awesome. So in closing, do you have any profound words of wisdom or a quote that you'd like to share?
I do have a good one. It's this too shall pass. That goes for good, all the good, bad, and the ugly. So if you're having a really good day, just remember, enjoy it because it's not going to be there. Could maybe not be there tomorrow. If you're having a bad day, deal with it because guess what? Tomorrow could be a good day.
Oh, that's super good. That's great to close on. I appreciate you so much. And have we met in person before?
Yeah, we've met a couple times.
Yeah, I'm sure we met at training when you were here and then at
Summit, yep.
Yeah, I thought so. Everybody kind of runs together a little bit, but now that I've heard your story, then I'll definitely be able to connect.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'll let you go and thank you so much and you have a great day.
All right, thank you.